Home for the holidays, Nebraska fans, once again. Welcome into the Voice of College Football and our weekly Huskers live show. You know the drill. You ultimately produce the show. Please leave your comments and your questions in the live chat. We will get to them throughout the hour. We would ask that you would consider the super chat to help us build and grow the channel and sustain this show. If you love the show that we provide each and every week for now 97 consecutive weeks here at the Voice of College Football with the help of Greg Peterson from Husker Online, then please consider the super chat contribution. You can also hit us up at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Search Mark Rogers TV. Of course, Nebraska goes down to Michigan, 34-3. No offense for a third consecutive week without Casey Thompson. And Nebraska now 3-7 cannot make a bowl game again. They have yet to reach the postseason, going all the way back to 2016. They have got one of the longest streaks in the nation of not going to a bowl game. It might actually be the longest in college football. I believe it is. Vanderbilt went to a bowl game in 2018. So Nebraska, with all its tradition, proud tradition, national championships, the dominant program of the 90s in college football, now owns the longest bowlless streak, I believe, in the nation, with Kansas becoming eligible 1 week ago. Again, welcome into the Voice of College Football, and keep in mind that each and every Nebraska live show is brought to you by Gene Arthur Associates. Gene Arthur Associates provides your insurance needs, whether that's home, auto, RV, life insurance, just about any type of insurance need that you could possibly need. Join Gene Arthur Associates. You grab the link in the description section of all the videos here at the Voice of College Football. We've provided the link to Gene Arthur Associates in the description section of all the videos here on the Voice of College Football Huskers. And you get your instant quote. So within minutes, you get your quote. And who doesn't want to save on insurance? Come on. We're getting blasted by record inflation all over the place by everything else. You might as well save on insurance to try to mitigate some of that cost. Also, for the remaining 2 weeks of the season, we've got our Nebraska football ticket giveaway. 2 free tickets to the Wisconsin game at Memorial Stadium, the regular season home finale for Nebraska football. And what you need to do is go to Gene Arthur Associates on Facebook. Go to Gene Arthur Associates on Facebook and like, follow, and share right there. Like, follow, and share on Gene Arthur Associates on Facebook. And you are automatically entered into our drawing for free tickets. First to the Wisconsin game. That is going to be announced on Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. Tuesday at noon Eastern Time, we will have the announcement on who won the tickets for the Wisconsin game. And then we've got one more ticket giveaway for the road game at Iowa. I'll be going through the comments here. Keep in mind that we also posted a live stream. Let's see, this would have been on Thursday or Friday, either Thursday or Friday, when it was reported / rumored by Zach Smith of Menace the Sports, former Florida and Ohio State wide receivers coach, that the framework was in place for Deion Sanders to become the next head coach at Nebraska. I've not heard anything since then to either negate that or to justify and validate and confirm that report / rumor. And so please join the live stream that we provided on Thursday or Friday. We jumped on here immediately to get your response to that. And we are in the midst of a coaching search at Nebraska, and it should be beyond intriguing to determine who Nebraska will finally get to run this program into 2023 and beyond. And again, we welcome everybody here at the Voice of College Football. Just 2 more games in the regular season. And for Nebraska, that means only 2 more games of college football, and then a long off season to wait for football starting next September. I don't believe Nebraska's got an August game in 2023 as they have the past 2 years in playing week 0 games against Illinois and Northwestern. And considering the results and the outcomes of those games against Illinois and Northwestern the past 2 years as double-digit favorites, it's probably a good thing the Huskers will join the rest of college football and just start up in September with probably a new head coach. Maybe it will be Mickey Joseph, but I can't think that he's done enough to retain the job and become the permanent coach. But that is the decision of one Trev Alberts. To the chat, we will preview the Wisconsin game. We've got an SB Nation writer coming on in a few minutes to preview Wisconsin. Of course, Matt Rule, the former Panthers coach in the NFL and Baylor Temple head coach, much talked about as being the possible replacement for Scott Frost. Yes, a rough game. At least with Casey Thompson at quarterback, they have mostly been losing efforts, but at least they've been entertaining, and at least the offense is worth watching. Trey Palmer is a factor when Casey Thompson's the quarterback. When Casey Thompson is not throwing the football downfield, then Trey Palmer is eliminated from the game. I think he caught 1 pass, 2 passes for 5 yards or something paltry like that on Saturday at Michigan. And so, we have seen full on display in recent weeks how much work has yet to be done for Nebraska to be competitive, not on the national scale, not even on the Big Ten scale, because we see the difference between the top 3 in the Big Ten East and everyone else, but to be competitive in the Big Ten Western Division that might be the worst division in college football. Might just be the worst division in college football. Never mind me. We apologize. No notification. Don't know why that occurs. I don't know the inner workings of YouTube in regards to why sometimes you guys get them and sometimes you don't. And sometimes we hear from some people that they did not get the notification and from other people that they did get the notification. I set up this live stream probably 4 or 5 hours ago. All right. Again, we've got a game at Memorial Stadium coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern time or 11 a.m. local time. That's Wisconsin and Nebraska coming up the second to last week of the season. Wisconsin with a big loss against Iowa this past weekend. We got Nick Snow on the line from SB Nation's Bucky's Fifth Quarter to help us break it all down. Nick, how you doing tonight?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Doing just fine. Appreciate you being here. And I caught most of the Wisconsin effort against Iowa. It's pretty much classic Wisconsin, Iowa. Iowa bottled up Braylon Allen, and Graham Mertz had a pretty miserable day. The Wisconsin defense was either the Wisconsin defense or the Iowa offense was what they both are in regards to stopping the Hawkeyes. But of course, the Hawkeyes won it with the defense turning over the offense and special teams plays. And just your takeaway on Wisconsin's 2-touchdown loss.
I think everyone's pretty disappointed in Madison at this point, but at the same time, the expectations weren't. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Okay, great. Yeah, I think everyone's pretty disappointed by the loss. I mean, it was an opportunity right there. You saw Purdue knock off Illinois earlier in the day, and okay, Wisconsin fans are like, all right, there's a path now to the West, which we thought we were completely out of it by the end of that Michigan State game. But, Wisconsin clearly ran into the buzzsaw that is the Iowa defense this year. And despite the improvements by Wisconsin's defense throughout the year, the offense has seemed to regress into some of the 2021 Wisconsin offensive woes. So it was difficult to watch. Anytime the offense was out on the field, it was, okay, I just hope they don't screw this up and give Iowa the ball back. I know at the end of the game, I was waiting for Spencer Petras to make a mistake to try to give Wisconsin some sort of life, but that game felt like it was over as soon as that punt was blocked in the first half. I mean, you can't get over that mistake. And then the pick six, both of those are just huge plays in the game. And Iowa had the momentum for most of the rest of the game, I guess you could say. So. Oh, can you hear me, Mark? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Nick, so we had you on the Iowa show last week discussing both the issues and also the better play under Jim Leonhard. So, talking to Iowa fans as we do each week, they are disgruntled about the lack of offense. And certainly the Wisconsin issues have not been anywhere close to what Iowa's have been over an extended period of time. But we know what Wisconsin, what the bread and butter is, going all the way back to Barry Alvarez and through the decades in regards to offensive line, running game, elite running back play, which they do have again this year in the last couple of years with Braylon Allen. Is there, especially since college football has changed in the passing game and in the formations and spreading the ball out and the tempo so much in the last 10 years, is there any reasonable portion of the fan base or media that kind of clamor for a change, an upgrade, a different style of football?
I would say yes. We kind of thought that we might get that with the hire of Bobby Ingram, who is the offensive coordinator this year. He was the guy that Paul Chryst had coached with at Pittsburgh when he was there. And then Bobby Ingram went to the Baltimore Ravens and had kind of helped usher in the Lamar Jackson era there. And I think a lot of Badger fans kind of thought, okay, maybe this guy can come in and help, resurrect Graham Mertz and bring in a style of offense that's still predicated on the run, but allows the receivers to be used in a way that isn't so archaic. Because that was kind of a lot of what was going on in 2020 and 2021. The route concepts were, horrible, and there was just a lot of problems with that offense, with that passing offense, especially. Now, this year, we have seen an improvement in the offense on the passing side. And in fact, I would argue that Wisconsin's going to go to the pass a lot more than they would have gone in the previous years. It's just that you have a quarterback who has a tendency to make mistakes at terrible times still. And so despite the offense maybe having some better weapons at receiver and having a dynamic running back, if your quarterback's going to make mistakes and throw interceptions at inopportune times and put the defense in bad positions, that's just not complimentary football. And the Badgers are going to struggle in those types of games. The old Barry Alvarez era, that was all about not making any mistakes and taking good care of the football. And I think that part of the problem with Graham Mertz has been that he's throwing interceptions, and he's despite him being a highly touted quarterback, he hasn't progressed to the spot where he needs to be in order to help Wisconsin win more games.
We asked you this question last week about Jim Leonhard in regards to the probability that he's going to be named the permanent coach. So 1 week later, after a performance against Iowa that, of course, was unsuccessful, but still at the same time, it was in no way a disaster. It was a competitive game.
Right.
Your thoughts about Jim Leonhard retaining this job?
I mean, I can't see any reason right now why that last week's game would change anything from where I was a week ago. Jim Leonhard, quite frankly, had a pretty tall task ahead of him when he was asked to be interim head coach. The next game was against Northwestern. Then they had to go on the road against Michigan State and come home and play Purdue. All three of those games, we saw a more competitive Wisconsin team, I thought, a team that actually wanted to be out there because, quite frankly, against Ohio State and Illinois earlier in the year, I think a lot of Badger fans saw a team that didn't really want to be playing much football. I don't know what was going on, but the motivation wasn't there. The effort wasn't there. It just didn't look like Wisconsin's brand of football. So I think that Jim Leonard's done a pretty good job of rallying these guys, and they're playing better football, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The offense has just constantly ran into, well, I guess you probably know this by watching a couple of their games, but they're streaky at best. And again, when you have a quarterback that makes interception or throws interceptions at inopportune times, you're going to run into a lot of problems. So I think Jim Leonard's the guy moving forward. I don't see why Wisconsin would want to move off a young defensive-minded head coach, something that's become an identity at Wisconsin defense. And I think at this point, it's not his fault. Head coach is going to take responsibility, right? But I think that there's probably a fair chance he's going to want to hire his own guys and try to remake this offensive staff moving forward. So I think just given the defense's improvements this year, I think there's plenty there to work with, and I think Jim Leonard's the guy.
I don't know if you've spent hour after hour trying to come up with the various algorithms that are the Big Ten Western Division, but as best I can figure this out, Wisconsin's not in a good place, but they're not eliminated.
No, they're not eliminated, which is kind of crazy. But again, I just don't see a path right now, which is fine. Again, I think this season was pretty much dead on arrival when the Badgers lost to Illinois. They were going to have to dig their way out of a hole, and a lot of teams were going to have to lose. Now, those teams have lost, but the Badgers have continued to be streaky. And so I doubt that this actually happens, but I did tell you last week I thought that Illinois was going to beat Purdue, and here we are. And Iowa's probably the favorite at this point to actually win out and win this thing, which would be pretty crazy given what happened just 3 weeks ago, what we were hearing out of Iowa City. So I think this is very much going to come down to what happens this weekend here in which again, I live in Minneapolis. So right here in Minneapolis with Iowa and Minnesota, I'm guessing this game will be just about as crazy as possible. And when I say crazy, I mean, it's going to be a lot of defense, a lot of punts, and whatever team doesn't make mistakes similar to last week is going to win this game. Now, Iowa has had PJ Fleck's number for the entire time he's been there. I don't know that Minnesota fans are all that confident, but I know that they are really, really chomping at the bit to get one from Iowa here. So that'd be a big step to Wisconsin's chances. But again, I would expect it to be Iowa here moving forward, and maybe if Iowa slips up, Purdue becomes the team again, right? Isn't that the scenario?
Well, so they've had his number, meaning Wisconsin over PJ Fleck, except for last year.
Oh no, Iowa over PJ Fleck.
Iowa over PJ. Yes, they have also had PJ Fleck's number. For Wisconsin, it was 15 or 16 straight last year.
I'd argue that rivalry has come back into balance. PJ Fleck has done a pretty good job building a culture at Minnesota, which is something they didn't have for those 15 years. They had some pretty lackluster teams throughout the 2000s and the late 2000 or early 2010s. I mean, PJ Fleck has done a pretty good job. The fact that we're even talking about Minnesota being a competitive team in the West. So I think this game really is going to. I think that this division is going to come down to whatever happens with Iowa and Minnesota this week, and then Minnesota, Wisconsin the next week. Because just correct me if I'm wrong, but the scenario is that if Iowa beats Minnesota, Iowa all they have to do is win their last game and they're in. But if Minnesota beats Iowa, it could be Purdue, Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Illinois at that point.
This is the way I've got it sized up. So let's deal with Wisconsin first.
Okay.
Because obviously they've got the most difficult path. And
right.
On face value, it seems almost impossible that a team, even though they're only one game behind with 2 games left to play, could hurdle 4 teams that are all in front of them. But if Wisconsin wins their last 2 games, they're 5-4. If Iowa and Illinois both lose their final 2 games, then Wisconsin automatically wins tiebreakers against Purdue and Minnesota. So they would need Purdue to lose 1 game, and then Wisconsin's the Western Division champions.
Wow. Yeah,
that's a lot of losing. They need five or six things to happen there.
But at this point, are we? I mean, can either of us say confidently that that's because either of those? I mean, that scenario could play out. I mean, we've seen the Big Ten West just, quite frankly, beat the crap out of each other this year, and I could see it happening, but I would say that it's a very far-fetched idea. And at this point, I don't know that many Wisconsin fans want to see Wisconsin go to the Big Ten championship and have to face an Ohio State or Michigan for that matter, because I think those teams are years ahead of where Wisconsin is at this point.
Well, I think what makes it pretty clear for people with all the calisthenics we could go through of the various scenarios is, to your point, Iowa doesn't have the easiest games, but I believe they've got the clearest path. If they win the final two games and Illinois loses against Michigan as expected, then Iowa's going to the Big Ten championship game. Now, if Iowa wins the last two games and Illinois wins its last two games, well, Illinois' got a tiebreaker against Iowa. Purdue plays the two easiest games. They've got Northwestern and they've got Indiana, but they would lose a tiebreaker straight up against Iowa. And I've got a litany of three-way tiebreaker scenarios and what that would, let's not even get into that, but it's crazy because even the three-way tiebreaker scenarios you could see going to a second and third and fourth tiebreaker, because they all involve those teams playing each other. And, you're only talking about 3 and 4 games in terms of tiebreakers. So a lot of them just continue to be ties and ties and ties. So it's quite involved.
Isn't the Big Ten West just beautiful? I mean, come on. I love it as well. I mean, it just embodies what you would love every division at this point to look like in the country. You wanted them all to be competitive, and these teams are all neck and neck in a lot of ways, and they play similar brands of football, which makes every game interesting. I mean, what Brett Bielema has done at Illinois this year is just it's terrific. It's what he has totally resurrected that program, at least for this year. Now, can he sustain success? We know that that's the hardest thing to do. We'll see, but it's been impressive, and I wish I could say I could count him out against Michigan, but I'm not going to, because you just never know. You just never know with Brett Bielema. He has a tendency to win games he shouldn't win and then lose the games he also shouldn't lose. So that's kind of his mantra down there.
Well, we get Nick Snow on the line from Bucky's Fifth Quarter on SB Nation. So get on over there to SB Nation, Nebraska fans, if you want to prep Wisconsin's side of this game coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm an Eastern time zone guy, so it always spits out of my mouth first, Nick. 11 a.m. Central, their local time, with Nebraska taking on Wisconsin. So Nebraska being a division rival, and of course, this is a Nebraska show. What are your thoughts about, first of all, just in a broad scope, Nebraska football and where this program sits in this division? Because it's arguably been the program that has recruited the best. It obviously has the best all-time brand, but they're 20 years separated from the bulk of that. What do you think of this program and the potential that they can get back to challenging Wisconsin and Iowa and the rest?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of Nebraska these days, because it's been a number of years now that they've kind of, been winning maybe 3 to 4 games in the conference a year. And I mean, as a Wisconsin fan, I would love for this to be a closer rivalry, but it hasn't been. And I think Nebraska fans know that. I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to make Nebraska fans upset, but that's kind of how it's been. And I don't know what they need to do to get back. I mean, it sounds like a head coach that can build some sort of rebuild the identity from the early 2000s and the 90s, where this is a development program where they don't have to rely on the transfer portal, and they have a culture that is built on winning. They have to get back to that, and I think that's going to be a slow process to get back there, especially entering into this new era where Nebraska's going to have to play teams like USC and UCLA. They're going to continue to have to play Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa, who are teams that have sustained success for a while. So I think if they can get back to that bread and butter of bringing guys in, having them stay for 4 years, and having a head coach who's building that winning tradition, they'll get there. But again, I think that is a process that takes more than a couple of years, right? It's not just done overnight. And if the expectations in Nebraska are that, next year is going to be the year, or the year after might even be the year, I think those are still far out. And I don't think that Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa are too worried about Nebraska, which just, again, I'm not trying to harp on this because I know that there's a lot of Nebraska fans watching this, but I think that's just a reality of where the Big Ten West is, which, again, it's not going to be the Big Ten West for very much longer. And a lot of pundits out there seem to think that as soon as the Big Ten West and Big Ten East come back together, there will not be very many old Big Ten West teams that are competing for conference titles.
So you believe it's going to be one through 16 lineup of teams, and the top 2 go to the championship game?
I think that's what I would believe would happen. I kind of like the idea of the pod system where you're playing, like Wisconsin would play all of their rivals in a given year. So they would play Iowa, Nebraska, and Minnesota, or Iowa, Minnesota, and Northwestern, however those pods actually come together. And then from there, you're getting a schedule that's just, I don't know if they can create balance in any way, because obviously that's been one of the big complaints with the current format, is that a team like Wisconsin maybe only plays Rutgers, Maryland, and Michigan State in a year, but Nebraska has to play Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State in that same year. So that the competitive balance is out of sorts, if that makes sense. So I don't know what the exact answer is there. I've read a lot of scenarios, but I think the best thing to do would be to preserve some of those rivalries as we introduce these new teams. And then somehow figure out a way to keep the competitive balance alive. I know that a team like Ohio State probably doesn't love that model, because they would love to be able to play teams like Illinois and Northwestern and Purdue every year, but they're going to end up playing teams like Wisconsin, Iowa. And again, I think Nebraska is showing up in those big games a lot. So I don't think they're exactly, Ohio State or a Michigan is exactly thrilled to always be playing Nebraska. So I think you got to find some sort of competitive balance in this new conference layout.
Again, it's Nick Snow at Bucky's Fifth Quarter on SB Nation. Check out his work and the rest of the crew there at Bucky's Fifth Quarter, covering Wisconsin as the Badgers and the Huskers get together coming up this weekend. Nick, we appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy the game.
Hey, I appreciate it. Go Badgers. Good luck.
We appreciate Nick Snow dropping by to talk some college football, get the Wisconsin side of all of this. We want to remind everyone that you're watching Nebraska Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Yeah, so there's been some comments, of course, made by everyone involving where's Greg? Because Greg is the guy that makes this show go each and every week for 97 consecutive weeks. So I'm guessing one of two things happened. Either Greg forgot that we switched to Monday night, or, as many of you have speculated, there's a possibility that the Nebraska coaching search has pulled him away to cover what may be brewing. I don't know. We certainly speculated about it again last Thursday and Friday with live streams right here at the Voice of College Football, and talked to all of you. Lance Leipold, Matt Rule is the hot name right now. Deion Sanders is denying any kind of connection to Nebraska football from what I understand. So I don't believe it's Deion Sanders at this point. So there we go. So yes, Greg is the man that makes this go each and every week for 97 straight times. But so we miss Greg tonight, of course, but he can't make it for whatever reason, but I've not heard from Greg. So I'm here to answer any comments and questions. And of course, the game's not much to talk about from the big house. No Casey Thompson means that Nebraska's pass game is non-existent. And Anthony Grant, I believe, ran 5 times for 11 yards against Michigan. It was just a mess. And I felt sorry for any Nebraska fan that I saw in the stands suffering through that sleet and cold, windy sleet, rain blowing at them. And who knows how much they paid for the tickets and how long they traveled to see just an awful, boring football game. Well, to be honest, I don't know exactly how boring it was because I didn't watch the whole thing. But I watched enough of it to know what was going down in Lincoln. We want to keep in mind that everyone who is interested in checking out Nebraska football firsthand live, that we've got another Nebraska ticket giveaway this week for the Wisconsin game. We're going to have 2 more. So we have given away tickets to all the Nebraska home games during the second half of the season. And next up, Wisconsin. So go to Gene Arthur Associates, first of all, for all your home, auto, all your insurance needs, regardless of the insurance need that you have. Gene Arthur Associates have you covered. Go to the link in the description section of any of the videos. And then also for the big ticket giveaway, go to Gene Arthur Associates on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram, it's easy. Just like, follow, and share. That's all you need to do on Facebook and Instagram, and you are automatically entered into the drawing for tickets, and that will be revealed on Tuesday afternoon. And our next lucky winner to Nebraska tickets against Wisconsin, then 2 for the finale at home, or that's at Iowa. Nebraska at Iowa. Of course, the final home game is this weekend against the Badgers. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here today. And some of you are locked in on the Nebraska channel and you're a Nebraska fan. So, of course, you are. But keep in mind, we do have 25 team channels, and 15 or 16 of them are up and running every day. A few of them we need to work on at some point down the line, but 25 was pretty much all I could handle. So it's more like 15 or 16. But whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, USC, those are running strong, along with Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and others, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. So please check out our other team channels. And if you just want to help us grow the network here at the Voice of College Football, subscribe to any channel that's under 1,000. Especially right now, West Virginia needs help. So does Texas A&M and Penn State. Also, Georgia. Get us over the 1,000 mark, because that's when YouTube just starts to take you seriously then. All right. I don't really see too many comments or questions here in the live chat. We moved the show each week from Tuesday to Monday because of the college football playoff selection show and our watch party that we've got in the main channel. Now, on Tuesday night this week, they are moving the watch party, or I'm moving the watch party, because ESPN is moving the selection show from 7 p.m. Eastern time to the in-between game slot of the 2 basketball games. So that's going to be more like at 9 or 9:30. So we are going to be live with our watch party at 9 or 9:30. So if Greg's available tomorrow night, we will do another Nebraska Live. So you can get a full show this week. So again, that all depends on Greg's availability, and if we can do another Nebraska show right here at the Voice of College Football coming up on Tuesday night. So regardless, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to be taking your calls at 7 o'clock Eastern time. That's in just a few minutes here. So in about 25 minutes right here at the Voice of College Football on the main channel. We will see you then in 25 minutes at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here.